my voice is going and the light on my phone stand has gone out. So, yeah. But I'm still going to bring y'all the quality content. Or I try to make it quality. But the content. And today I've got another nostalgia review to start off the new year fresh. Well, start off the new year reminiscent. But these blasters are pretty cool. Today I'm going to be looking at the first era of the Nerf Dart Tag series. I've got 3 blasters today, and it's just so happens to be, you know, all of the new era Dart Tag blasters that, well, held more than one shot. The first era of Dart Tag had 5 blasters, 3 of them had 10 shots, 2 of them had 1. No, there were 6 blasters, there were 3 single-shot pistols. But I have one of them, but I just didn't care to hunt it down for this video because I don't want to yap about a single-shot pistol at the moment. So we start with the first ever Dart Tag blaster, the Nerf Dart Tag Hyperfire. The Hyperfire was released in 2004 as part of the Nerf Dart Tag series. And it is a spring-powered 10-round cylinder-fed blaster. So we start out with the overview. Up at the front, there is a rotating cylinder that rotates on trigger pull. And as I noted in my Maverick nostalgia review, this actually functions a lot better than the Maverick. I've never had my Hyperfire or my Fury Fire jam on me, which is interesting because they both use the same type of rotation, but I wonder if the cylinders being weighted differently has anything to do with that. Up at the top, there's a rail for an optic or a sight or a strike fire. Going down from there is the foregrip. This blaster has a vertical foregrip, which is odd with how small the blaster is and how low the foregrip is. I have a modded one. I'm thinking of hunting it down and chopping off its foregrip just to see how this works as a pistol. But we shall see. Going back behind that, you get up to the priming handle, which has a nice little handrest, and you just pull it back, and it springs forward. That primes your spring, and you can now pull this two-finger trigger to fire a single dart. This blaster does not have slam fire, with it being essentially the same thing as a Maverick. Well, it was the Maverick before the Maverick. This released in 2004, the Maverick released in 2005. But yeah, that's all I really have to say on the Hyperfire. Let's get on to the next blaster. The next blaster is the Nerf Dart Tag Mag Strike. Yes, it says End Strike. It had a simultaneous release in both Dart Tag and End Strike, and I just happen to have the End Strike version. This is a Dart Tag blaster. Here are the Dart Tag versions. It was a simultaneous release. This blaster was released in 2007, which, fun fact, was the same year that Hatsune Miku was created. So, yeah, we need fan art of Hatsune Miku holding the Mag Strike. Somebody get on that. Starting up at the front, you have the pump. This is an air-powered automatic blaster that is manually pumped. It means you gotta take this thing and you gotta slam it in there about a bajillion times. Well, 25 times. Just to get it to be able to fire. It is kind of slow, kind of cumbersome, but whatever. It's very fun. So you take this and you pump it. And after you get about 25 or 26 pumps, this thing's going to start giving you a lot of resistance, which shows that the overpressure release valve is engaging. The overpressure release valve keeps you from overfilling the air bladder and the bladder popping. So once you start hearing the blaster whine a little, and once that starts giving you a lot of resistance, stop pumping. You've pumped it enough. Up at the top is the clip. The Mag Strike feeds from a 10-round clip. Yes, it is called the Mag Strike. Yes, this is a clip, not a magazine. This is a mag. This is a clip. But for whatever brain-bungled reason, when Hasbro released their magazine-fed blasters, they called it the clip system and called the magazines clips. And when they released the Mag Strike, it is a clip-fed blaster, but they actually called these magazines, which is just strange. And yeah, the Mag Strike came with 2 of them. So yeah. The clip holds 10 darts and has a little belt hook on the side. Now do note this thing is very tense and very tight, and I've actually had trouble hooking this on my pants before, so you may want to stow these away in a pouch or something. But to insert the clip, you take it and you line it up with the hole on the top of the blaster, and then you just shove it down. This is the clip in its rested, unfired position. Yeah. Back here is the tactical rail. This is really more meant for attaching the Strike Fire, which is the first ever dart tag single shot pistol, which released in 2005. It has a It has a reverse rail attachment that allows it to slide onto a rail and actually prime off of a rail. You wouldn't want to put an optic on this because the clip then shoots up when you fire the blaster, which would immediately block your vision. So yeah, having a scope on there is pretty pointless. Back here is the tank. The tank holds an internal soft-sided air bladder, which houses the air. This also acts as the blaster's stock. It's actually a relatively comfortable stock, considering the blaster's very strange form factor. Now, the reason why I've been kind of dodging around the trigger is, well, this blaster, you really want to focus on this thing when it fires, because it's kind of blink and you miss it. Because this blaster's fire rate per second is higher than its capacity. This thing has a fire rate of about 12 darts per second, but it has 10 darts in its clip. Ready? Make sure you focus. I didn't even put those in my dart catch. Whatever. Do you see how gorgeous that was? 10 darts in less than a second. This thing is just really fun. Impractical, entirely impractical, but very fun. I want to run this at a war, just for the sheer... I need more clips, though. I only have 3. Ugh. So, next is the Nerf Dart Tag Fury Fire. The Fury Fire was released in 2009. I think it was 2008. I want to say 2008. 2008. As part of the Nerf Dart Tag series. And it is, well, it's a pump action hyperfire. Up at the front you have the muzzle. There's no end strike barrel lug, though there really doesn't need to be. And behind it is the pump grip. You simply pull this back. And the funny thing is, it also has a spring return, which I find utterly hilarious. And then again, up at the top you have the rail, and down here you have a translucent 10-round cylinder. Back here you have rear sights that match up with a front sight, and it's actually the first of these old dart tag primaries that actually has a proper set of irons. which is honestly odd. But of course, down here is the grip and the trigger, and this actually is like the most comfortable grip out of all of these. They really cooked with this one. And the cool thing with it being pump action is you can get a pretty fast fire rate out of it. I used to be good at this. I'm not as good at it anymore. But it doesn't have slam fire, obviously, but if you can rack that pump grip fast enough, you can get a pretty decent fire rate out of this. This makes a pretty solid little secondary with how small it is. And that concludes my overview of the blasters. Now I want to talk a little bit about the series. Dart Tag was meant to be the, well, you know, Nerf blasters, you know, up to that point were never really meant for shooting at people, in air quotes, because, you know, everybody did that anyways. So they wanted to make a player versus player series of blasters. So they made Dart Tag. And how Dart Tag worked was a lot of these blasters came in sets where there was multiple of them. The Hyperfire, Fury Fire, and Mag Strike all had sets that included 2 blasters. They'd be either blue, red, green, orange, whatever. Though the Mag Strike never got a green or orange version. It was just the Hyper and Fury. But they came with Velcro vests and also Velcro tipped darts. So when you shot somebody, the darts would, in theory, stick to the vest, and it would count for points and stuff. I don't entirely know how the game works, but yeah. They also released a device, it looked like almost like a flashbang, but it was a flag device that was meant for playing like Capture the Flag. And they released that in 2007, I think. So yeah, it was really cool. It was all based around like PvP and gameplay, and it was kind of cool how Nerf wanted to make people pretend, or Nerf wanted to pretend that they were actually, you know, caring about the hobby, what little of it existed back then. But yeah, that is the overview concluded. We shall now take these blasters and head out to the range. Alright, we are out on the range with the old Dart Tag Era 1 blasters. And let's play with them. I'm going to throw a cylinder each through the Hyperfire and the Fury Fire, and then I'm going to dump 3 clips through the Mag Strike. Let's go. That's the Hyperfire done. And now we move on to the Fury Fire. Alright, that's the Fury Fire. Now I know I was firing pretty slowly with both of those, but don't worry, you'll get your high fire rate kick. mag strike, 25 pumps. Alright, send it. And clip number 2. Mag strikes full again, one-handed this time. Oh. I arced it a little too hard. Because my hand ended up being above the tank. And finally, clip number 3. We'll just send it again. All right. That was the firing demo. Let me go clean up my darts, and I'll take these 3 old crones back in, and we shall talk about them. All right. We are back inside with the dart tag blasters, and it's time for the conclusion. Starting off, we have the FPS results. I put all 3 of these blasters over my chronograph, and I achieved an average velocity of about 50 some odd FPS. I mean, they were all kind of right around the high 40s to low 50s. And so, yeah, so about around 50. So let's talk about the conclusion. I really like all of these blasters. I mean, the Fury Fire is probably the most practical out of the 3. But I do kind of like all of them. They have this kind of whimsy where, you know, they came from back in the day where, you know, it didn't have to be, you know, super practical, you know, it didn't have to everything be pump action and flywheel and strife and all that. You know, you could run silly stuff and, you know, it'd still be considered war effective by most people's standards. But, yeah, I just overall have a pretty good opinion on all of these blasters. There's really not much to say about them. They're all pretty simple. So now I'm going to go through my new nostalgia review segment of putting myself in the shoes of John Hasbro and, you know, proposing if I were the designer, the bigwig in charge, how would I make these blasters? Well, firstly, for the Hyperfire, I would honestly slim it down a little bit, make it a little sleeker, maybe make the cylinder a little smaller. Not enough to, you know, have to lower the capacity more, but just remove some of the dead space. And then I would just lop this foregrip off. Like, nobody needs a foregrip this close to the thing. It feels so weird to use this way. And I'm honestly probably going to lop the foregrip off my modded one. So, yeah. The Fury Fire, I also propose a pretty simple change. Just increase the capacity and throw a stock attachment point on it. That's all it really needs. Because it's meant to be a primary, but 10 rounds is kind of low, so, you know, size it up, maybe a, you know, 15, 18, 20 round cylinder, and give it a stock attachment point so you can really brace it for some actual, like, strong shooting. And at that point, just give it slam fire. I don't know why this thing doesn't have slam fire. It doesn't need the spring return. So, yeah. bigger capacity, stock attachment point, and slam fire are what my modernized Fury Fire would be. And now we're going to completely overhaul the Mag Strike. So I want to keep a few key design elements. I'm going to keep it clip fed, I'm going to keep the manual pumping, and I'm going to keep the tank stock. And I'm going to take everything else and throw it out the window. Firstly, I propose mixing it in with a mechanic from the Rapid Fire 20, which is basically, I want it to have that dial where you can essentially alternate between having a slower fire rate but higher power and a faster fire rate but lower power. So basically, if you needed to engage somebody from farther away, you could crank it into power mode and take, you know, quick semi-auto pop shots. Of course, the blaster not being semi-auto, it's just full auto but slow. And then if you have to engage somebody close, you can just crank it into, you know, fast mode and just go right into somebody's face. Disclaimer, do not shoot people in the face with Nerf blasters. It isn't pleasant. As somebody who gets shot in the face by Nerf blasters a lot that are much stronger than this thing, it is not pleasant, even if you are wearing iPro. So yeah, that's my first big change. My second big change is, I don't know if this is possible, but I do want it to kind of become more carbine shaped. Like, you can keep the low stock, the like paintball marker-esque low stock, and maybe, I don't know, either have the clip feed through the side, or, you know, kind of like how the Battle Scout does it, just have the clip feed through the side. I'm probably gonna, you know, would say just keep it as a double stack clip, because that works. So just either have it feed through the side, or, you know, keep the pump housing up in the way up in the front, and then you pump down, and then it goes through a hose around and down into the tank. I'm not a good designer. I'm not a designer at all. I'm just proposing an idea, and if somebody wants to roll with this idea, please do design a blaster, and I will bug somebody to print it for me. But the third thing I want to do is I want to make this higher capacity, because full auto with 10 round capacity is just stupid, no matter what your fire rate is. This is just a pathetically low capacity. So yeah, basically I am going to propose it feeding, well, more Mag Strike-ified version, obviously, but essentially like a Stratobow clip. The Stratabow's clip holds 15 rounds, and even still it has enough dead space in it where you could probably fit more into that. But yeah, have it take a 15, 18, 20 round clip that either feeds through the side to give you a direct pump, or feeds, you know, through the bottom. And if it can be made, make it open bottom so you can just shove the new clip in the bottom and it'll come to a rest at the top and knock the other clip out. That would be kind of cool. Or just have the other clip just eject. Yeah. If somebody wants to design that, take my neurodivergent ramblings and actually put them onto a CAD program, I would love to see it. Like, make a short and ping me in it, because I want to see that. But yeah, that would be how I would redesign the Mag Strike. Now, that's not because I hate these designs or I think they're, bad or whatnot. I'm just thinking, like, modernize them to fit more along the lines of modern standards. So, yeah. I think I have blathered and rambled on enough. If you did enjoy this video, then please do leave a like and subscribe, and comment your favorite Dart Tag blaster. I will likely be doing a video in the future of Era 2 or Dart Tag 2011, but I'd like to hunt down a specific blaster for that, so it's, it can actually be 3 blasters instead of just 2. But, yeah, that'll be it for today, and I will see you all in the next one. Hopefully when I'm not, you know, dying. Goodbye.